Hello again! In the last video, we finished up the bulk of development, and so all of our features and functionality are now in place. In this video, we're going to wrap things up and tie up a few loose ends. So you could do a few things to do some cleanup and polish. For instance, you might play through the game a few times and tune your spawn rate or your decay rate or your various parameters to change the feel of the game. You could also resize the spawn volume, for instance. You could also remove any other things you have cluttering the level, like maybe if you left any base pickups that you dragged in there or whatever, and also remove any log spam from your code. So that's just kind of polishing things up. I'm not going to resize this spawn volume, but what I will do is go into our top view, and I'm going to create a couple of more spawn volumes so that we actually see that part working. So I'm going to Alt drag again, and now we have 3 separate spawn volumes, so we'll get to see all of those in action. So that'll be pretty cool. And then the other thing we wanted to do, as I mentioned previously, is rather than just saying you won, we'd like to say who won the game. So in order to do that, we need to know the name of the player who won, and we need that to exist or be available on the clients. So where would be a good place for this? You guessed it, in the game state. So let's switch over to Visual Studio and knock that out. I'm going to go into my game state here, and we're just going to make this publicly accessible. So we'll make it's an F string, the winning player name, and this is a U property because we need it to be replicated. We'll make it blueprint read write, and we'll put it in the power category. Okay, so this is the name of the player who won the game. Okay, so we don't really need to do any functionality with this, although we do need to know about it. It's replicated, so we need to add it into our lifetime replicated props. So go down up here to our do rep lifetime, copy and paste that, replace that macro call with the winning player name. Okay, so now it's all replicated, we're good to go. The only other thing we need to do now is set that, which we will do in the game mode. Switch over to game mode, CPP file, go down here. We could try to do it when we handle the state transition as part of transitioning to the game 1 state, but we don't know the player at this point, so we're going to make the change. We're going to set the value here when we do know it, because the battery character has enough power to win the game. So let's go ahead and set that here. So we're going to grab the game state, my game state, set the winning player name equal to the battery character, and all of these actors have this function called getName, and that is all we have to do. Now, of course, we could be more fancy and have players enter a name of their choosing or something like that, but this will work for our purposes. So we're going to set the winning player name, then that will get replicated to the clients, so they'll be able to use it. That's all we need to do. Let's go ahead and build. And if that succeeds, then we will go ahead and switch back over to the editor and actually use the value. Wait for it. Wait for it. All right, good to go. Switch over to the editor. And now we need to go into our UI, and this is where we set the value, was in our widget. So let's go over to the graph, and here's the get text widget. And you see where you just have hard-coded U1. We'll just move this stuff over a little bit to give ourselves some space. And we're going to drag off our game, so we have this value in the game state. So let's drag off of here and say get winning player name. Perfect. And we want it to say the name of the player won the game, or just won. So let's append some text after it. So it'll say the player's name and then space 1. Okay? And then we just attach that to the 1, and it will create a conversion for us to convert from the string to text, and that's all we have to do. Compile and save. So now that should all work just fine. And so we can go ahead and test. So let's hit play and run around. Just going to collect a little power there. And let's just make sure our game over state works. So you can see all of the 3 of these spawn volumes are spawning pickups. Oh, I need to get over this way. Oh, and both the player and the server and the client died, and you can see the spawn volumes all stop spawning pickups. So that's working. Perfect. Now let's check the winning case. So I'm going to run around and collect power so that I can win the game. And it looks like third person character C_5 won the game. Hooray for me. Alright, that works, but the server just fell over. What happened? Well, it turns out that we have a minor bug still, which is we never stopped calling the power drain function. So that timer is still running, and it's still checking that to update the game rules, the game logic, even though the state of the game is basically over. So let's go ahead and fix that up. I'm going to do that in Visual Studio, switch over, and we'll scroll up. And where we called the set timer to actually kick off the timer was right here in Begin Play. Now, I also noticed when I was reviewing this that I've had a bug in this code for quite some time. And since I keep everything in a repository, I was able to roll back and look at the logs and find that actually I introduced this all the way back at the very beginning. And that is, we aren't calling the super version of Begin Play, for starters, and that is poor form. We need to be calling the super version of Begin Play first. That's our convention. And okay, so now that we're doing that, fix that little issue, we need to set this timer to kick off spawning, but we're only going to do that when we handle the new state. So we'll transition the new state, and let's go down here to where we handle that new state. So when we go to state playing, we activate the spawn volumes, and we will start draining power. Okay, and then whenever the game is over, we're going to stop draining power. So let's stop draining power. And we do that by saying get world timer manager and clear timer and pass in the power drain timer handle. Okay, and then we'll just copy that because when we win the game, it's the same thing. So now we're going to stop running that power drain timer. So we'll just switch back over to the editor, hit compile. And so now we should handle all of those game states correctly. We'll stop spawning the volumes, and we should stop draining power from the other players because the game isn't happening anymore. So let's hit play. I'm going to go around and grab some pickups. And I won. I won the game. And let's check. You can see the server is no longer losing power. Perfect. So we've tied up that little loose end as well. And that's going to do it for us. We have finished everything. So we've got our networked pickup, we've got our networked characters, we've got some visual effects happening, we've got the game mode and the game state, we have our spawn volumes, we've got everything working, and it's all working in multiplayer over the network. That is going to do it for this chapter, or this series. So I hope you'll join me in a future series where we'll do other things, like in the next series where we will add some other kinds of pickups and we'll deal with pack ratting things in our player inventory. So I will see you in the next video.